Out of all the fast food chains we're about to talk about, one of them stands out for a surprising reason. Nearly 73% of Americans grabbed a meal there just last week alone. But here's where it gets unsettling. When health inspectors stepped into the back kitchens of that chain, what they uncovered was disturbing enough to make 3 inspectors immediately walk off the job. And brace yourself, because the most uncomfortable part of all is this. It's very likely a place you personally love and visit all the time. What's even more shocking is that the issue they're quietly keeping under wraps isn't technically against the law at all. You're looking down at a Big Mac, probably thinking it's nothing more than a straightforward burger. 2 beef patties, shredded lettuce, that famous special sauce. Seems simple enough at first glance, right? Not even remotely. That one sandwich alone delivers around 1,000 milligrams of sodium, which is creeping up on half of what you're supposed to consume in an entire day. And that's before you even reach for a single fry. But here's where things start to take a strange turn. Those beef patties? They aren't made of just plain beef. McDonald's includes something labeled natural beef flavor. It sounds harmless, almost wholesome, but it actually contains derivatives of wheat and milk. So if you're someone with food allergies, that innocent-looking burger could land you in the emergency room instead of just filling you up. Now let's shift gears and talk about the ice cream machines. Everybody jokes that they're always broken. The truth is a lot less funny. The cleaning cycle reportedly takes about 4 hours to complete, and it fails more often than you'd think. When it does fail, leftover residue can remain inside the machine. Yeah, let that image sit for a moment. And then there are the McAfee machines, which, according to former employees who've spoken out, may be even more concerning. Some have claimed the internal milk tubes go weeks without a proper deep cleaning. Weeks. Milk tubes. Take a second and really process that. As for those iconic golden fries everyone raves about, they're treated with dextrose, essentially a form of sugar, to help achieve that consistent, perfectly browned color. On top of that, they also contain beef flavoring. So if you're vegetarian and thought fries were the safe option, you may have unknowingly been eating potatoes seasoned with meat flavor this entire time. And here's one more twist. A 2022 Consumer Report study revealed that McDonald's grilled chicken contained the highest sodium levels among the fast food chains tested. Yes, the grilled chicken. The option that's marketed as the healthier choice. And just to be clear, McDonald's isn't the only one playing these kinds of marketing games. Take Burger King, for example. They proudly advertise their patties as flame-grilled fresh. Sounds rustic and authentic, right? But what's really going on behind the counter may catch you off guard. That bold, smoky flavor they love to promote is more of a performance than a process. Here's what actually happens. The patties move across open gas flames for roughly 6 seconds, just long enough to create those picture-perfect grill marks. After that, they're placed in a warming drawer, and when you finally place your order, they're reheated in a microwave. Flame-grilled definitely has a nicer ring to it than briefly exposed to fire, then microwaved, doesn't it? But that's only part of the story. Let's talk about what's inside a Whopper. One sandwich contains 11 grams of sugar. Yes, sugar, in a burger. That's actually more than you'd get from a glazed Krispy Kreme donut. I had to double-check that number myself. Then there's the so-called zesty sauce. It sounds innocent enough, maybe even refreshing. But it contains titanium dioxide, a whitening additive that several European countries have banned from food products altogether. Meanwhile, here in the US, people are casually dipping their nuggets into it without a second thought. Health inspections have uncovered additional concerns. At multiple Burger King locations, raw meat has reportedly been stored directly above ready-to-eat items. Basically, a cross-contamination risk just waiting for the wrong moment. Former employees have also described broiler conveyor belts layered with hardened, burnt grease that hadn't been thoroughly cleaned in months. And now, let's talk about the undisputed heavyweight in questionable menu decisions. The Bacon King. A single sandwich packs around 2,150 milligrams of sodium and 79 grams of fat. That's not just lunch. That's practically your entire recommended daily intake crammed between 2 buns. If your arteries could talk, they'd probably be drafting legal paperwork. Think Burger King is pushing things to the edge? Just wait until we get into the chain that markets itself as fresh, never frozen, while quietly holding on to some seriously outdated secrets. Wendy's really leans into that tagline. Fresh, never frozen. They repeat it so often you'd think it was stamped on every wrapper and wall inside the building. And to be fair, their beef patties genuinely don't go into a freezer. That part is true, and they deserve credit for it. But here's the detail that tends to get glossed over. The chicken nuggets? Frozen? The fish? Frozen solid. In fact, most of the proteins that aren't beef arrive at the restaurant rock hard and are later held in warming drawers for extended periods before they ever make it onto your tray. So while the beef skips the freezer, much of the rest of the menu doesn't. And then there's the Frosty, that nostalgic treat so many people have been ordering since they were kids. It contains more than 15 ingredients. One of them is cellulose gum. It sounds technical and harmless, but it's actually derived from processed wood pulp and used as a thickening agent. In simple terms, you're enjoying a creamy dessert that includes a form of refined tree fiber blended right in. This next part caught me off guard. Wendy's chili reportedly begins with hamburger patties that stayed on the grill a little too long. Instead of tossing those overcooked burgers, they're chopped up, simmered, and transformed into the next day's chili. I guess that's one way to avoid food waste. If you order a large chocolate Frosty, you're looking at around 82 grams of sugar. That's comparable to tearing open roughly 20 sugar packets and swallowing them all at once. Somewhere, a dentist just sensed a shift in the universe. The lettuce has also been a serious issue. Several E. coli outbreaks have been linked back to Wendy's locations. In 2022 alone, 109 people across 6 different states became ill, with contaminated salad greens identified as the source. The greens arrive pre-washed, which sounds reassuring, until you learn that the refrigeration units storing them have repeatedly failed temperature compliance checks. So yes, the beef may be fresh and never frozen. But when you zoom out and look at everything surrounding it, the bigger picture feels a lot less reassuring. Taco Bell's seasoned beef isn't entirely beef. In fact, it's about 88% actual meat, with the remaining 12% made up of fillers like oats, yeast extract, and something known as modified cornstarch. In other words, they're stretching that protein the way past generations stretched leftovers to make them last. At one point, this practice even led to a lawsuit. A law firm argued that Taco Bell shouldn't legally be allowed to label the mixture as beef. The company ultimately won the case, but largely because USDA guidelines only require a product to contain 40% meat to qualify for that label. 40%. That's not exactly a high standard. Here's another number that's hard to ignore. One Nachos Bel Grande contains roughly 1,350 milligrams of sodium. That's more than half of the recommended daily limit packed into something that looks like a casual snack. You'd feel like you need to chug water for the rest of the day just to balance it out. And that nacho cheese sauce? It doesn't get ladled out of some fresh-made batch. It arrives in large industrial-sized bags and sits in warming units at about 140 degrees for as long as 5 hours at a time. Some former employees have nicknamed it the Orange Mystery, which honestly feels fitting. The beans aren't exactly homemade either. They're delivered as dehydrated flakes. Add hot water, stir them up, and suddenly you've got refried beans. Simple, efficient, and probably not what most people picture. My grandmother definitely wouldn't approve. Thinking about dessert? A 12-pack of Cinnabon Delights contains around 32 grams of sugar, that's about 8 teaspoons, for what seems like a small, poppable treat. It's essentially frosting wrapped in dough with extra branding. Over the years, the chain has also dealt with lawsuits accusing it of promoting fresh ingredients that actually arrive frozen and heavily processed. Let's just say the word fresh is working overtime in their marketing campaigns. And while we're on the topic of flexible definitions, Subway has mastered that art too. The entire brand was built around a single promise: fresh. It's the word that fueled their rise. But here's something most people don't realize. Ireland's Supreme Court reviewed Subway's bread and ruled that, legally speaking, it doesn't qualify as bread. Why? Because the sugar content is so high that it exceeds the country's legal limit for what can be classified as bread. In that context, your supposedly healthy sandwich is technically wrapped in something closer to cake. Then there's the tuna controversy. Independent laboratories conducted tests on Subway's tuna and reported that they couldn't detect identifiable tuna DNA. None at all. Subway pushed back, saying the testing methods were unreliable. That may be their position, but when scientists struggled to confirm the presence of fish in a fish sandwich, It naturally raises eyebrows. Those vibrant vegetables displayed behind the glass counter look crisp and freshly sliced, but in reality, they're shipped pre-cut in plastic packaging. Once opened, they can remain in refrigerated bins for up to 3 days before ending up on your sandwich. That's 3 days of gradual wilting while customers assume someone just chopped them moments earlier. And here's a number that's tough to ignore. A foot-long Italian BMT contains around 2,780 milligrams of sodium. That's more than the recommended daily limit packed into a single sandwich. You'd need serious physical activity to even begin offsetting that. The oven-roasted chicken sounds wholesome and freshly prepared. However, former employees have claimed it arrives pre-cooked in sealed bags, is reheated, sliced, and then presented as if it just came out of an oven. It's smart branding. Fully transparent? That's debatable. And remember the controversy back in 2014 involving azotocarbonamide? Subway removed the chemical from its bread, but only after widespread public backlash highlighted that the same substance was also used in manufacturing yoga mats. It took significant public pressure for that reformulation to happen. If you think that's unsettling, just wait until we get into how another well-known chain prepares its chicken, because what the Colonel's been keeping quiet about might surprise you even more. Alright, let's get into the Colonel's so-called secret recipe. And no, it's not just a charming blend of 11 herbs and spices. KFC prepares its chicken using pressure fryers filled with oil that reportedly isn't completely replaced every day. Instead, fresh oil is added on top while the existing oil can remain in use for up to a week. So the piece of chicken on your tray may have been cooked in the same oil as hundreds of others before it, essentially sharing a very crowded bath. If you order an extra crispy breast, you're taking in around 1,190 milligrams of sodium, and that's before you've even thought about adding a side dish. Speaking of sides, let's talk mashed potatoes. They don't start with peeled, boiled potatoes in the back kitchen. They arrive as dehydrated flakes in large bags. Add hot water and margarine, whip it together, and you've got something that resembles homemade. Your grandmother might not approve. She might actually shut the whole operation down. Now, the gravy is where things take an even more unexpected turn. According to former workers, the browned residue that accumulates at the bottom of the fryers is scraped out, combined with water and powdered gravy mix, and served as the final product. In other words, it's a blend of concentrated drippings and seasoning, hot and ready. Health department records don't exactly help the image either. KFC locations have frequently ranked high in citations related to temperature control violations. Chicken has to be kept either properly hot or properly cold. The temperature range in between, often called the danger zone, is where bacteria multiply rapidly. And those soft, buttery biscuits? Some versions have contained partially hydrogenated oils, which are artificial trans fats linked to heart disease. Many major food chains phased those out years ago. The Colonel built a global brand around chicken that's famously finger-licking good. The flavor keeps people coming back. But once you understand the preparation process, you might find yourself licking your fingers a little more cautiously. Chick-fil-A has carefully built a spotless image, smiling employees, spotless dining rooms, and that automatic "my pleasure" after every order. Walking in can feel less like fast food and more like a theme park version of customer service. But all that friendliness can be a pretty effective distraction. Take their classic chicken sandwich. It contains MSG, which isn't unusual in fast food, but it's listed under multiple names on the ingredient label. You'll see yeast extract, hydrolyzed proteins, and monosodium glutamate itself. Different wording, same flavor enhancer. The waffle fries are cooked in peanut oil that's filtered every day, which sounds reassuring. However, that same oil can reportedly remain in use for up to 2 weeks before being fully replaced. It's refreshed and reused, over and over. And then there's the large frosted lemonade. It tastes light and refreshing, especially in the middle of summer. But it contains around 82 grams of sugar. That's more than 2 full cans of Coca-Cola poured into a single cup. On a hot day, you're basically sipping melted candy. The chicken itself is made with a surprisingly long ingredient list, more than 30 components, including additives like sodium aluminum phosphate and dimethylpolysiloxane. That last one is also used in products like Silly Putty. It's approved for food use, but still, it's not exactly farm-to-table imagery. Now let's talk about the Cobb salad, the option many people choose when they're trying to eat clean. Add the dressing, and you're looking at roughly 1,180 calories and 80 grams of fat. At that point, you could argue that two Big Macs might not be much worse. Former employees have also mentioned that the chicken is marinated in a pickle juice brine for up to 48 hours. That soak is what gives it the signature tangy flavor, but it's also how significant amounts of sodium are absorbed long before the breading or frying even begins. Still, as polished as Chick-fil-A appears, it may seem almost wholesome compared to what's coming next. Arby's proudly says, "We have the meats." The real question is, what exactly does that mean? You'd probably assume Arby's roast beef starts as an actual roast, a whole cut of meat that's seasoned, cooked, and sliced in-house. That would make sense. But that's not how it begins. It's delivered to locations in sealed bags as a soft, paste-like substance. Employees then shape it and roast it on site. By the time it's sliced and stacked on your sandwich, it looks like traditional roast beef and tastes close enough. Still, that transformation from bagged paste to deli-style slices isn't exactly featured in the ads. And while we're clearing up names, let's talk about the cheddar sauce. Despite the label, it doesn't actually contain real cheddar cheese. It's a processed cheese product enhanced with coloring agents and preservatives to achieve that bright orange look. I once ordered extra cheddar thinking I was upgrading my sandwich. In reality, I was just asking for more dyed sauce. Nutritionally, things don't improve much. A classic beef and cheddar sandwich delivers about 1,280 milligrams of sodium and 39 grams of fat, and it's not even that large. It fits comfortably in one hand. Then there's the meat mountain. That towering stack of proteins clocks in at around 1,350 calories and roughly 3,610 milligrams of sodium. That's nearly 2 full days' worth of recommended salt intake in a single sitting. The curly fries sound simple. Just seasoned potatoes, right? Not quite. They contain close to 50 ingredients. 50. For something that starts as a potato. One of those additives, disodium dihydrogen pyrophosphate, helps preserve that vivid orange color so it stays visually appealing. Former employees have also reported that meat slicers sometimes operate through entire shifts without thorough sanitization. That means blades spinning nonstop, potentially accumulating residue and bacteria between orders. Sonic's roller skating car hops pulling up to your window feels charming and nostalgic, almost like a scene out of a retro movie. It's fun, it's quirky. But what's actually inside your cup? That's a different story. Independent health inspections have tested ice from certain Sonic locations and found bacterial contamination levels reportedly higher than samples taken from toilet water. Pause on that for a second. The ice chilling your soda could, in some cases, be less sanitary than what you flush away. Ice machines tend to sit in warm, humid conditions, and when they aren't thoroughly deep cleaned on a regular basis, they can turn into ideal environments for bacteria to grow. It's not exactly the refreshing image you had in mind. Now let's talk about that Route 44 Cherry Limeade. It sounds light and summery, right? Order one, and you're taking in about 99 grams of sugar. That's roughly the same as consuming 7 full-size Hershey's bars, except you're drinking it through a straw in a single sitting. Somewhere, a dentist just sensed a shift in the universe. As for the hot dogs, they can remain on those rotating warmers for up to 4 hours. Food safety guidelines warn that bacteria multiply quickly once items sit too long in certain temperature ranges. By hour 2, you're already entering risky territory. And if you're feeling bold enough to try the peanut butter bacon shake, brace yourself. It comes in at around 1,940 calories. That's nearly an entire day's worth of recommended calories packed into one cup. I've seen holiday meals that didn't hit that number. Health inspection reports have also cited instances where employees handled cash and then immediately prepared food without washing their hands or changing gloves. Straight from bills and coins to your burger. Not exactly comforting. For anyone managing food allergies, there's another concern. Tater tots, fries, fish, and chicken are often cooked in the same fryer oil. That shared oil creates a significant cross-contamination risk. It's not an accident, it's simply how the system is set up. Popeyes has built its brand around big, unapologetic Cajun flavor. That's the whole identity: bold seasoning, crispy coating, unforgettable taste. But that boldness comes with a nutritional price tag. One single chicken breast from Popeyes contains about 1,330 milligrams of sodium. That's higher than KFC, higher than Chick-fil-A, higher than most major chicken chains, period. With just one piece, you're already brushing up against your entire recommended daily salt intake. Now let's talk about those famous biscuits. People are obsessed with them, and to be fair, they're incredibly good. But each biscuit carries around 14 grams of fat and is made with lard. You're essentially biting into a buttery, flaky delivery system for saturated fat. Delicious? No question. Heart-friendly? That's another story. Then there's the so-called healthier option, the blackened chicken. It's marketed as the lighter alternative since it's not breaded and fried. Sounds like a smart swap. But that deep, dark color? It comes in part from caramel coloring, an additive that has raised concerns in certain lab studies due to potential carcinogenic compounds formed during production. So even the better choice may not be as straightforward as it seems. What really stands out, though, are claims from former employees who say cooked chicken sometimes sits in warming cabinets well past the official discard time, up to 90 minutes beyond when it's supposed to be thrown away. That's an hour and a half past the safety window. Discarding food costs money. Serving it doesn't. Order a full meal, a sandwich, fries, and a drink, and you're looking at more than 1,700 calories in one sitting. For many people, that's nearly an entire day's recommended intake wrapped into a single lunch. And if you think Popeyes plays loosely with definitions, wait until you hear how Dairy Queen defines ice cream. Here's something most people don't realize about Dairy Queen. Their soft serve technically doesn't qualify as ice cream. Under FDA guidelines, a product has to meet a minimum milk fat percentage to earn that label, and DQ's formula falls short. So what are you actually getting? Officially, it's classified as a frozen dairy dessert. Not exactly the same ring to it. But the bigger nutritional punch comes from the blizzards. A large Oreo blizzard contains around 1,140 calories and a staggering 112 grams of sugar. That's like blending more than 4 full-size Snickers bars into a single cup and handing you a spoon. I once tried finishing one myself. My teeth weren't thrilled about it for days afterward. Now about those burgers. Ever notice how the grill marks look almost too perfect? Uniform, evenly spaced, identical every time? That's because they're applied at the factory before the patties are frozen and shipped out. In many cases, the burger you're eating didn't meet an open flame at the restaurant. It met a microwave and food-grade branding ink. If you're aiming for something more filling, the chicken strip basket might seem like a solid choice. But that one meal can deliver around 2,490 milligrams of sodium, more than an entire day's recommended limit packed into a single lunch order. Former employees have also mentioned that blizzard machines are typically cleaned once per day. During peak hours, residue from previous mixes can accumulate inside the blending components. That buildup stays there until the next scheduled cleaning cycle. And then there's the chocolate dip coating on those classic cones. It contains paraffin wax, the same substance commonly used in candles and certain floor polishes. It's approved for food use in small amounts, but it's still a strange thought. Your dessert comes with a glossy shell made from something you'd normally associate with furniture or home decor. When it comes to unexpected ingredients, Jack in the Box makes painted grill marks look almost harmless. The chain carries a history it can't quite shake. Back in 1993, undercooked beef patties triggered the deadliest E. coli outbreak ever linked to a fast food restaurant. 4 children lost their lives, and more than 700 people became seriously ill. That tragedy wasn't some distant, forgotten chapter. It reshaped food safety regulations across the United States. You'd assume an event like that would lead to relentless caution moving forward. But here's where things take a strange turn. Their well-known tacos aren't made from straightforward beef. The filling includes texturized vegetable protein blended with meat, yet it's not marketed as a plant-based alternative, and it's not clearly presented as pure beef either. It sits in a kind of labeling gray area where the average customer may not fully understand what they're eating. And despite that ambiguity, millions are sold every week. The buttermilk used in their crispy chicken? It's not fresh cultured dairy. It's a powdered mix combined with water at individual locations. The word buttermilk appears on the menu, but the preparation is far less traditional. Former employees have shared less flattering details as well. According to some accounts, taco meat can remain in warming trays long enough to lose its color, turning dull and gray, the shade usually associated with leftovers that have overstayed their welcome. If you opt for the Bacon Ultimate Cheeseburger, you're signing up for around 1,120 calories and 77 grams of fat in one sandwich. That's comparable to consuming an entire stick of butter, just packaged between two buns. A cardiologist wouldn't be thrilled. Their seasoned curly fries also contain dimethylpolysilicoxane, an anti-foaming agent used in cooking oil that's also found in certain silicone-based products. It's approved for food use, but it's not exactly the ingredient you picture when you think fresh-cut potatoes. Jack in the Box survived its darkest chapter and implemented reforms, but some operational habits still raise eyebrows. And if you think those portion sizes are intense, just wait until you see what Hardee's and Carl's Jr. consider a reasonable meal. Hardee's and Carl's Jr. seem to operate under the philosophy that moderation is optional. Their Monster Thick Burger comes in at around 1,330 calories and a staggering 95 grams of fat. That's more than many adults should consume in an entire day, packed into one lunchtime sandwich. And then we act surprised when our jeans start feeling tighter. Things get even more interesting on the legal side. Carl's Jr. has faced multiple class action lawsuits over its 100% Black Angus beef marketing claims. Critics argued that the advertising wasn't as clear-cut as it sounded. When you're positioning yourself as premium and charging higher prices, that kind of controversy doesn't help your credibility. The fries might seem like the safe option. Natural cut has a wholesome ring to it. But a large order delivers about 530 calories, along with additives like sodium acid pyrophosphate, a chemical compound used to preserve color and texture. It's not exactly something you'd find growing in a potato patch. And those biscuits advertised as made fresh? In practice, they're typically produced at centralized facilities, frozen, shipped out, and reheated in-store. Technically warm when served, yes. Freshly crafted from scratch in the back kitchen? Not quite. Health inspectors have also cited some locations for storing raw meat at temperatures above recommended safety levels. Raw beef lingering in the temperature danger zone isn't exactly the kind of behind-the-scenes detail that inspires confidence. If breakfast feels like a safer bet, think again. A single breakfast burrito can contain around 2,380 milligrams of sodium. That's essentially your full daily recommended limit before you've even finished your morning coffee. I'll admit, the smell of those charbroiled burgers drifting through the air when you drive past is undeniably tempting. But nutritionally speaking, it's the kind of temptation your arteries would prefer you ignore. And if you think that's an indulgent way to start the day, wait until we talk about a certain donut chain where freshly baked may not mean what you assume it does. Dunkin' built its entire brand around the idea of fresh donuts, warm and ready every morning. That's the image. But behind the scenes, most of those donuts are partially baked at large central production facilities, then shipped out to individual stores where they're finished. After that, they can sit in display cases for up to 18 hours before someone finally buys one. So yes, fresh is technically defensible, but it's definitely working overtime in the marketing department. And surprisingly, the donuts aren't even the biggest calorie hit on the menu. Order a large frozen coffee with cream, and you're looking at roughly 990 calories. That's more than a Big Mac and medium fries combined, except you're drinking it through a straw and finishing it in under 15 minutes. Now let's break down the breakfast sandwiches. You'd assume an egg is simple, crack it, cook it, done. Not here. Dunkin's egg mixture reportedly contains around 14 ingredients, including additives like cellulose gum, xanthan gum, and citric acid. My grandmother's scrambled eggs had exactly one ingredient: eggs. The croissants might sound elegant and European, but each one carries about 19 grams of fat, sometimes including partially hydrogenated oils. That puts them squarely in artificial trans fat territory, the kind cardiologists have been warning about for years. Then there are those flavor swirl pumps that transform your latte into something resembling birthday cake. According to former employees, if the pumps aren't taken apart and cleaned regularly, mold can develop inside. And at high-volume locations, thorough weekly cleanings don't always happen as consistently as they should. Thinking of adding a glazed jelly stick to your order? That single pastry contains about 54 grams of sugar. That's roughly 13 teaspoons in one go. Most people eat it casually, pairing it with a sweetened coffee that adds even more sugar on top. And if you think that's the peak of sugar overload disguised as a convenient meal, just wait. Our final stop may be the biggest offender yet. And finally, we arrive at Panda Express, the brand that somehow convinced much of America it was serving authentic Chinese cuisine. Here's the uncomfortable truth. It really isn't. Traditional Chinese cooking is built around balance. Fresh vegetables, restrained sauces, and proper wok technique that creates flavor without drowning everything in sweetness. Panda Express took a different route. Instead of subtlety and balance, it leans heavily into sugary sauces and glossy coatings. Take the orange chicken. One serving contains about 490 calories, which might not seem outrageous at first glance. But hidden inside that bright, sticky glaze are more than 50 grams of sugar. That's the real issue. You're essentially eating candy-coated protein, dessert disguised as dinner. Order a standard plate with fried rice and 2 entrees, and you're easily looking at 1,500 calories or more, along with roughly 3,000 milligrams of sodium. That's more salt than you'd encounter in a full day by the ocean. And yes, the actual ocean, not a beach volleyball game. And despite the wok fresh messaging, many of the components, like the noodles, arrive frozen from large production facilities. The cooking process in-store often involves reheating with added oil, and prepared dishes can sit in steam tables for extended periods before being served. Ever notice how the teriyaki has that perfectly dark, glossy finish? That appearance is enhanced with coloring agents designed to make the food look richly caramelized. It's visual appeal by design. But if there's one menu item that stands out, it's the Beijing beef. Each serving contains around 28 grams of sugar, about the same as a full-size Snickers bar. The difference is, when you order beef, you don't think you're signing up for dessert. If there's a takeaway here, it's this. After hearing all of this, you might pause before pulling into the drive-thru at any of these 15 chains. And honestly, your stomach may end up thanking you for it.